Good evening. It's a warm welcome to GRTS News with me, Winifred Nicole. But first, the headlines. President Barrow outlines his government's priorities during the state opening of the National Assembly. Ghana sends in experts to share experiences with the Gambia on the AU's Africa Risk Capacity Program. Uganda refuses claims of redeploying troops to South Sudan 2 years after withdrawing from the war-ravaged country. And Ethiopia hands over hundreds of prisoners to Somalia. Well, viewers, those are the headlines. Thanks for joining us once again. His Excellency President Adama Barrow has delivered his address to the National Assembly, outlining his government's priorities, policies and programs. Mamadou Jallow was at the National Assembly chambers in Banjul and reports on the significance of the speech at a time when the government is working very hard to champion the welfare of Gambians.
President Adama Barrow arrived at the National Assembly building for his much anticipated address to the legislators, outlining his government's programs and policies. It has been nearly 6 months since Mr. Barrow took office and had promised sweeping changes to how the country is run. Therefore, his speech to a packed legislative chamber touched on all issues confronting the country. Whilst the President acknowledged the peaceful democratic transition, he nonetheless underlined the need for continued reforms of the judiciary, security services, the civil service and economy, amongst others, to consolidate a stable and vibrant government responsive to the needs and aspirations of citizens. He began by outlining his ongoing reforms of the judiciary, which have seen far-reaching changes to its outlook and operations.
A criminal case and detention review panel has also been established to inquire into all criminal proceedings against current and former public officers, and the panel have uncovered cases linked to political activity and person remanded and awaiting trial. We have recently and carefully concluded the work on the setting up of a commission of inquiry to look into the financial businesses related activities of the former president and his associates.
The president also revealed plans to widen his reforms of the security services, particularly the military, by setting up a military academy to train officers on military sciences and doctrine. On the nagging electricity problems, President Barrow said his government has taken adequate steps to not only stabilize the situation, but to solve the problems once and for all.
We recently signed an agreement for a 60 megawatt power plant, which will more than double the current generation capacity in the country. It will deliver adequate and stable electric power supply in the whole of the Greater Banjul area.
The state of the Gambian economy has long been on the spotlight, and the president promised to continue his recovery program to get the economy up and running after decades of what he described as mismanagement. His government, he continued, enjoys the financial and diplomatic goodwill of development partners who have committed resources to help revamp the economy.
The European Union has made a significant financial commitment. It is disbursing frozen funds and committing new funds to support the development agenda of the new Gambia. The World Bank have already provided vital emergency budget support, and we are in the final stages of concluding a rapid credit facility agreement with the IMF.
Turning his attention to the civil service, the president said a comprehensive reform to weed out ghost workers, reinstate officials wrongfully sacked, and depoliticize the civil service have been undertaken. These reforms, the president argued, are necessary to enhance efficiency and discipline.
In normalizing the civil service, we have established a panel to review the wrongful dismissal of civil servants and other government officials between September 1997 to December 2016. Since its creation, the panel has cleared over 100 employees allowing them to be reinstated.
The address virtually touched on all important sectors, outlining in detail how his government is working to improve education, provide health care, protect the environment, and promote tourism, which is a significant contributor to national GDP. This address to the National Assembly also marks the official opening of the legislative body. Deputies will now convene in the coming days to scrutinize the contents of the speech, which outlines government policies and programs. Maurice Diallo, GRTS News.
Meanwhile, deputies at the National Assembly have hailed the president's speech as promising, but some are calling for the government to continue to aim higher. Babka Kamara takes a look at the president's key programs.
From elections to their inauguration, the deputy's mandate has been explicit to serve the electorate. President Barrow's address to the nation has given an impetus for a serious legislative scrutiny of his outlined policies and programs before Parliament.
We all witnessed and heard the President outline the policies and programs of the new Gambia, according to him, which is now the new slogan. I think the expectations are very high, and that of Parliament or the National Assembly is no exception.
Constitutionally, of course, he is yet to become more concrete on the constitutional reforms we are going to undertake. So one would expect that at least the aspiration for a two-term presidency would be elaborated. One would envisage, is it 3 years, 5 years? One would have anticipated some of those comments which are in the grapevine being discussed, that the president will become more concrete with some of them. But essentially how the civil service will evolve to address a salary that is less than $1,000 a month for a driver, a messenger, for the pensioners. So one would expect some pronouncement.
The president's address to the nation has been widely anticipated for, as the country has been clouded with much social side talk. But if the remarks of these legislative authorities, representing both sides of the political divide, is anything to go by, hope can be anticipated.
If government said one of their priority today is to try and sort out the issue of electricity, which is very important in every human life. All these things, actually, they are in the process of trying to put in order. And then looking what the president said today, actually, being the minority leader, I am very much impressed.
We will be able to look at it and see, scrutinize it, and ensure that they are in line with what's been stated in the documents. And I think the president's address to the nation was very extreme, and it was very clear, and he has touched up on very key issues that are of concern to the Gambian people.
With the Gambian leaders engaging the public on his first major meaningful policy and programs outreach, the coming days are expected to witness a serious scrutiny of President Barrow's proposal to Parliament for the best interests of the masses.
For us at the National Assembly, we are expecting that the government will come up with laws that will be very relevant and in line with the policies and programs that the President has outlined in his address to the nation.
That's why I am emphasizing that we need to interrogate the statement, because people want to know in the short term what could be done to deal with the employment situation.
Babukar Kamara, GRTS.
A two-day Africa Rigs Capacity Stakeholders Meeting is underway in Kololi. The program was organized by the National Disaster Management Agency in collaboration with the Africa Rigs Capacity Program and Ghana's study tour on the Gambia's Rigs View. Suma Jadama tells us more.
Africa Rigs Capacity was established in 2012 as a specialized agency of the African Union to help member states improve their capacity to better plan, prepare to extreme weather events and natural disasters. Speaking at the opening ceremony, the National Coordinator of Africa Rigs Capacity, Maudo Amadou Jallo, said the agency is expected to provide the Gambia with weather index insurance, which will transfer natural disaster risks away from government and vulnerable population to Africa Rigs Capacity.
You all know that
governments in Africa, particularly this government, our economy is heavily dependent on tax, and to some extent we are also, to a larger extent, we are depending on agriculture. So as a government, we are very sensitive to protecting what is most important to protect, and that is the livelihoods of the people that we serve. Remember, government is a leader, a service provider, and an incentive provider. So if the people, the farmers who produces what we eat and produces what we export, have their livelihoods threatened, obviously there is no way a government can be comfortable.
This, he maintained, will galvanize efforts for the government in strengthening transformation solution for a self-sufficient and resilient agricultural sector in the Gambia and other ARC member countries.
But with the African risk capacity being around and a government taking out a premium makes a government very comfortable to say, well, yes, you don't need to be running healthcare sector looking for funds, which are hard to come by nowadays given donor fatigue. But once you have a license and you have a premium with the ARC, you don't need to worry going around looking for funds.
Charlotte Nana Norman is Director for Climate Change Adaptation and Disaster Risk Reduction of the Republic of Ghana.
We have a few expectations. One of them is to acquire in-depth knowledge and information on Gambia's ARC process experience, that is looking at data elements used for customization and contingency planning, elements considered for implementation in case of payouts, and then the challenges and some of the lessons that have been learned already from the Ghana.
Norman hoped the outcome of the study tour would give our country the opportunity to strategically plan and purchase a sovereign insurance premium from Africa Risk Capacity. The two-day stakeholders meeting is expected to expose participants to some of the prerequisite steps being taken by the Gambia in purchasing insurance premium from Africa Risk Capacity. Suma W. Jadama, reporting for GRTS.
The Solicitor General, Cherno Marena, has disclosed plans by the Ministry of Justice to amend the existing Anti-Money Laundering Act. H.N. Silva tells us more.
The Solicitor General made these remarks at a 3-day regional anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing conference, essentially highlighting two main objectives of the proposed bill.
And this amendment seeks to introduce new reporting entities such as charities, such as some civil society organizations who receive funding from countries around the world. And of course, you would realize that that is one potential source of money laundering. And the amendment also seeks to introduce administrative sanctions for reporting entities, that is basically people or entities that fail in their obligations to report suspicious transactions, to have the opportunity to impose sanctions and fines on them without necessarily going through the long drawn-out court processes.
Marina, who described the conference as timely, also hinted that the amendment is intended to solve existing discrepancies in the said act, which was enacted in 2012. Welcoming the move to ratify the said act, the director of the Financial Intelligence Unit, Yaya Kamara, said the amendment will help strengthen the fight against money laundering.
The current act that we have does not impose administrative sanctions. That is imposition of monetary fines, and that is and to us as at FIU and our development partners, there's a need to include proportionate and decisive administrative sanctions, including financial sanctions, on the non-compliance of the financial institutions and the non-financial institutions, particularly the designated non-financial businesses and professions.
Kamara also holds the portfolio of national correspondent of the Regional Intergovernment Action Group Against Money Laundering, hailed the ongoing regional forum as both crucial and timely.
This order of administrative sanctions would make sure that the financial institutions and the non-financial sectors implement preventive detection reporting measures to ensure that their services or their systems or companies or entities are not used criminals who perpetrate money laundering and terrorist financing offenses.
The prominence of money laundering in Africa is as rife as terrorism financing. The two phenomena may differ, but pose serious implications on national economy and security. However, similar fora have given activists hope that the fight against these two criminal activities may not end but will minimize. It is 5 years since the convening of similar functions that were organized to create awareness on money laundering and the counter-financing of terrorism among member states. So far, the advocacy is hailed for making a breakthrough in the drive to ensure compliance in international anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism standards in this region. Chen Silva, GRTS News.
The new executive members of the Students' Union of the American International University were recently inaugurated at a ceremony in Kanifing. The team, as Aminata Sanyang reports, will serve for a period of 1 year.
Outgoing president of American International University said this event sought to recognize the efforts of students, as it also harped on the need for togetherness. The incoming president, Ibrahim Abba, called on the students to change their attitudes towards time.
I do hope and pray that I was able to reach your heart as you reach mine, and I hope and pray that I was able to fulfill or make changes that we all yearn for.
In the Gambia, many people misunderstood having principle and being a dictator. We misunderstand these two things. And for me, when there is a work to be done, it has to be done. There are no excuses. And what I tell people, if you don't do until do does you, you will be doomed.
The first guest speaker of the event, Mamadou Sabali, underscored the importance of leadership and its role in the development of a country.
I can't emphasize enough the role that you are playing, because I know you're all going to play important leadership roles later on in our civic setup. And you can't learn these things in books. You will have to take the positions, as Mr. Sonko rightly said, and learn it in the practical way.
Speaking on the topic, love of self and country, Halifa Saleh, the second guest speaker, noted that everyone has the right to protection, academic freedom, and liberty. He observed that knowledge acquisition has gone beyond the classroom.
There is an organic link between self and country. Love of self and country has led to people sacrificing self for country. Sacrificing self so that a people will attain the right to self-determination and independence.
At the end of the ceremony, certificates were awarded to the outgoing executives for their outstanding performances as poets thrilled the audience with inspirational poetic lines. Reporting for GRTS News, I am Aminata Sanyang.
A group of women's rights activists, students and parents have appealed to the government to address concerns of violence against women and children. As we hear in this report by Sisi Sawane, several people who spoke to GRTS said violence against women and girls still remains a challenge.
Violence against women and children remains an unaddressed concern for gender activists. Rights advocates have expressed alarm after a recent surge in cases of sexual violence. The program officer of the Network Against Gender-Based Violence, Palu Sow, said the lack of a proper reporting mechanism was responsible for the underreporting of cases of violence against women.
Over the years, the government has not been able to come up with a simple and friendly reporting mechanism where communities can easily report cases. For instance, having a hotline where communities can easily report cases of those violences against women and children without being involved. Because most of the communities, you know, the Gambia
generation, Hadijatul Jonga, said her organization believes in the power of young people and supports grassroots organizations to end female genital mutilation. She said the unavailability of the current data on FGM in the country poses a challenge to anti-FGM campaigners.
Initiatives led by people at the grassroots level. What we can do usually is, and they have initiatives of campaigns and projects that they work on, provide the funding for go back to these communities, where we try to encourage the popularization of the law to have this create a platform in their different projects to sensitize people about the existence.
The national coordinator of the Network Against Gender-Based Violence, Hadib Boj Barrow, disclosed that a care team had been formed to monitor and help minimize violence against women across the country.
The one-stop center, in a nutshell, is an innovation that is based at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. As a pilot, we have now expanded to Bansang Hospital, and the idea is to bring the various organizations that works directly with women or girls who are affected with violence, such as physical violence, sexual violence, or emotional violence.
Fatmata Bayo of St. Peter's Technical Junior Secondary School and Abdullah Gay of Kudu Senior Secondary School appealed to parents to take into consideration the best interest of the child.
Parents are forcing their children to get married on the age. It's because of poverty. Some families are poor, so they force their child to get married to rich people. Governments should join hands with parents to stop early marriage.
The government should make sure that they help the children and they sensitize about child labor, that the rules and regulations of children, but children should not be abandoned by their parents. Because right now what's happening at times, you will see parents, they will leave their children, they say their children, go and do this, because they cannot offer payment for the children.
And this is what Sonda Jalio has to say. The issue of rape is becoming very rampant in the Gambia. Young girls are exploited by older men in the society. We are always not comfortable leaving our children to go to school alone because of the rape cases, and the government should take a firm stance towards the issue and bring up a solution. Reporting for the news, I am Sisi Sawane.
We will take our first break now. The sports news is up next. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Gambia's Chang team has returned from Mali earlier this morning, where they were eliminated from the qualifiers by Mali. The Junior Scorpions lost 4-0 to end their hopes of a maiden appearance in a major tournament. Mamadou S. Jallo watched the game at the Modibo Keita Stadium, and this is his report.
Gambia's hopes of a maiden appearance at a major football tournament have been shattered once again, after the country's Chan team were eliminated in the first round of qualifiers by a ruthless Malian side, who put 4 goals past the Junior Scorpions without reply in the return leg at the Modibo Keita Stadium on Saturday. The two sides faced each other in Bamako for the second leg, a week after playing out a goalless draw in the first leg at the Independence Stadium. The final and decisive tie was delicately poised, with both countries having the chance to progress to the next round of qualifiers for Africa's second biggest football competition, to be hosted by Kenya in 2018. But a superb second half display by the Young Eagles completely swallowed the Junior Scorpions. The truth is that a more experienced and a better prepared Malian side won on the day, but the scoreline doesn't reflect the performance. The visitors appeared to be in control of the game until quarter way into the second period, when they capitulated, allowing the Malians to run riot on them. Coach Alaji Sarr made just one change to the side that drew in Banjul, dropping midfielder Seni Sambu to the bench and replacing him with striker Mustafa Drame. And his charges made a promising start to the game, with a much improved first half display compared to the one we saw in the home game. In fact, the Scorpions should have been in front had they capitalized on their chances. The Scorpions had the opportunity to sting the Eagles, but it appears as if the tails of the junior Scorpions were either left in Banjul or they are not strong enough to sting and cause pain. This was the first glorious chance missed from point blank, and then moments later an even better opportunity presented itself from this goalkeeping blunder, but Pa Umar Joop failed to punish the host. That was a great opportunity missed to take the lead. Alaji Sarr Jr. and Mustafa Drami both did very well to enter the Malian box, but their final pass was disappointing. The junior Scorpions were very organized in the first half, with young combative midfielder Matar Sise giving the Malians a tough time in midfield, whilst the back four kept the Malians at bay throughout the first 45 minutes. Then came one of the worst, if not the worst, second half in Gambian football. The Scorpions, however, started brightly after the resumption from the break, until this moment, when the host took the lead. Ibrahim Kone left alone in the box to tap the ball past Alaji Nyabali from a brilliant cross, and from that moment on, the goals started raining. Few minutes later, Ibrahim Kone doubled the lead with another simple tap after the low cross eluded everyone in the box, before finishing off a brilliant move by the Malians to complete his hat-trick, and a perfect evening for him, before being substituted to a round of applause from the home fans. Substitute Ngunde Nyandadu rounded up the scoreline to make it 4-0 and secure Mali passage into the next round of the qualifiers, whilst the Gambia crashed out. The results were absolutely disappointing, and yes, the junior Scorpions have exceeded the qualifiers, but that's not the end of the road for Gambian football. It will take time for football fans to digest the Bamako defeat, but we need to move on and collectively find solutions. One important thing is that despite the Bamako hammering, the team should be maintained with the necessary adjustments needed in the technical department and the players. Continuity and adequate preparations for all categories of the national teams is one of the ways to build a formidable team capable of challenging the likes of Mali. Momodes Diallo, GRTS Sports.
Time now to take a look at news from outside the Gambia right after this break. Welcome back. Uganda says it has no plans to send its troops back to South Sudan after withdrawing them in October 2015. Ugandan troops were last deployed in South Sudan in December 2013, when fighting broke out between government forces and soldiers loyal to former Vice President Riek Machar. Details in the CGTN report.
To re-enter South Sudan. At the moment, the country's army spokesperson Richard Karimiri says that Uganda would only deploy as part of an African Union force, but is yet to be asked. He refuted reports that Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni was planning to redeploy troops along the Nimule Road, a route that is a major highway that connects the South Sudan capital, Juba, to the Ugandan border. Ugandan traders have previously been attacked by armed men along the busy road. The reports for redeployment came in after South Sudan President Salva Kiir was in Uganda last week. President Kiir was here to attend a meeting with his counterpart, President Museveni, as part of the ongoing dialogue to resolve the conflict in the young nation. The meeting in Uganda also involved members of the opposition in South Sudan, including Rebecca Garang, Kiir's political rival. The conflict in South Sudan has forced many people to flee into Uganda and other neighboring states. The UN Refugee Agency has indicated that the number of refugees is soon hitting the 1 million mark in Uganda. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, in Kampala.
Ethiopia has handed over more than 100 prisoners to Somali authorities in Mogadishu. The deal was reached in May and June following visits to Addis Ababa by Somalia's President and Prime Minister. CGTN's Abdul Aziz Bilo has more from Mogadishu.
The plane carrying the prisoners touched down shortly before dusk in Mogadishu. And for these young men, it's home at last. These prisoners are returning from Ethiopia, where they spent years behind bars. For them, things changed in May following a visit to Ethiopia by Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo.
The total number of prisoners here today is 114. They are from prisons in Jigjiga, serving various jail terms, with some plan to serve a 20-year jail term. It's based on recent talks that the Somali leadership reached an agreement with Ethiopia.
Most of the prisoners were nabbed while en route to Sudan and then Libya, where cartels continue to make thousands of dollars through human trafficking. Some of their colleagues made the journey to Europe, but not all were lucky. Addis Ababa, meanwhile, says it's seeking to strengthen relations with Mogadishu.
The prisoner handover is a sign of positive gestures between our two countries. The request was made by the Somali leadership, and we hope this will boost the relations between our two countries. It's a good beginning, and we hope our two countries can work together for martyrs.
President Farmajo visited Ethiopia in May, where he reached a number of agreements with Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn. Somalia's Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khaire also played an important role in overseeing the prisoners' return after he represented Mogadishu at the 29th African Union Summit in Ethiopia. The two countries also share a long border, with the Ethiopian military helping AMISOM push back the Al-Qaeda-linked militant group Al-Shabaab from south and central Somalia. The two leaders also agreed to boost movement of people and trade between the borders in a bid to address poverty levels in both countries. Migration remains a major challenge for Somali authorities, and with youth unemployment on the rise, there's little assurances that those prisoners who've returned will still remain in the country. But for now, experts are calling on Mogadishu to invest in its youth and protect them from human traffickers, both here at home and abroad. Abdulaziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu.
Over now to the weather report, courtesy of the Central Forecast Office. We are unable to bring you the weather update. And before we take leave of you, a recap of the day's main stories. President Barrow has outlined his government's priorities during the state opening of the National Assembly. Ghana has sent in experts to share experiences with the Gambia on the AU's Africa Risk Capacity Program. Uganda says it will not redeploy troops to South Sudan 2 years after withdrawing from the war-ravaged country. And Ethiopia has handed over hundreds of prisoners to Somali authorities in Mogadishu. Well, viewers, that was all in this edition of the News at 10. From me, Winifred Nicola, and the entire news team. Thanks for the pleasure of your company, and do have a peaceful evening.